Welcome, my young friend. Tonight, you will live in the world of Game of Thrones, but not as a knight or a lord or a dragon rider. No. Tonight, you are just a humble blacksmith from the lower streets of King's Landing. You will feel what the common folk saw, hear what they whispered about, live through the great events of the realm, not from the halls of power, but from the soot-stained corner of your forge. You will taste what they ate, smell what they burned, sweat as they did, and watch history unfold through the eyes of a man who was never meant to shape it, only survive it. So get comfortable, close your eyes, and let yourself drift into this world. This is your story now. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share in the comments what story combination you'd like to live through next. Now, we begin. You wake to the sound of bells, not loud, not urgent. The kind they ring at the sept when someone important is about to die, but not yet. The kind that wakes birds, but not men. You know that sound. It's not for you, not yet. The forge around you is still dark. The coal's long since gone to ash. But the air carries a different heat this morning, not from flame, but from tension. Even the rats beneath the floorboards have gone quiet. Outside your window, the faint outline of the red keep bleeds into the dawn like a cut that refuses to close. Your hands ache before you move them. Your back is already sweating. The stone beneath your mat is damp, either from dew or from something worse leaking through from the alley. You stopped checking weeks ago. You rise anyway. You always do. The tunic you pull over your head is the same one you wore yesterday, and the day before. It smells of burnt oil and summer rot. You tie the leather apron tight and flex your wrist. The scar from that old Lannister blade still itches when the air shifts. Today, it itches. You step out onto the street. King's Landing is waking the way a drunk wakes. Confused, loud, and already angry. Someone is vomiting near the tavern stairs. Someone else is shouting about stolen chickens. A woman drags a boy by the ear, and he's laughing the whole way. Steam rises from the cobblestones, like the city is trying to sweat out its own sins. Above it all, the red keep watches, redder than blood in the morning light. You nod to old Moria, the candle seller, who mutters Valor Morgulis under her breath like it's a greeting. You nod back, because the words are wind, and wind is all the city trades in lately. Back inside, the forge is cold, but not empty. The iron sings softly to itself, not with voice, but with weight. You feed the coals like feeding a creature that bites if it's rushed. The bellows groan like a dying ox. You work slow. You always do. By mid-morning, the streets are louder. Someone says they saw Arya Stark near the sept, dressed as a boy. You don't believe them, but you listen. Someone else swears the imp was dragged from the Tower of the Hand last night, laughing all the way to the cells. That you believe. The gold cloaks pass more often now. They don't look. They don't talk. Their boots hit the ground like hammers. And there are more banners today, red ones with lions. You know what that means. You keep hammering. Around noon, Sir Burrows Blount rides past your stall. He doesn't stop. He never does. He once called your forge a pisshole for peasants, and then paid triple to have a dent fixed in his helm. He still wears that helm. You smile at the memory, then stop yourself. Smiling here is suspicious. That evening, in the tavern, the talk is thick like old stew. Nobody trusts anyone, but everyone wants to speak. They've arrested the Hand, someone says. Treason, whispers another. Stark was always too proud, mutters a third, chewing boiled onion. The barkeep pretends not to listen, but pours slower than usual. They say Joffrey will sit the throne without the council's blessing. You sip your ale, flat, warm. You listen. You always listen. Before you leave, a boy brushes past you, grime on his face, eyes too wide for his head. She's coming. he whispers. Who? You ask. The Dragon Queen, he grins. She's made of fire. You say nothing. You've heard that one before. Outside, the city exhales, the kind of breath it takes right before a scream. You look up. The red keep gleams like fresh blood. And for a moment, just a moment, it looks like it's smiling. You work without speaking. The forge breathes with you. Hiss in, hammer down, hiss out, ember flare. The rhythm is old. It lives in your arms now, not your mind. You stopped thinking about the metal years ago. You just listen to it. Steel always knows what it wants to be. Your job is not to shape it, only to stop getting in the way. Outside, the city grows louder. The market below your shop shivers with whispers. Some say Littlefinger was seen leaving the brothel district without guards. A sign, they claim. Of what? No one agrees. A butcher swears he saw Queen Circe weeping alone in the sept. A rat catcher laughs and says queens don't cry. They poison. Everyone has a truth. No one has proof. You keep hammering. The sweat on your neck tastes like copper today. Your fingers are raw again, not from burns, but from pressure. The kind that builds when the air grows too heavy with silence. Even the birds have stopped fighting above the rooftops. That afternoon, 2 men arrive. Not soldiers, not beggars, not anything easy to name. One wears the black of the night's watch, though it's clean, and he still has both ears. The other carries no sword, but has the gait of a man who's broken more than just bone in his time. You the one made the blade for Sir Elin? The taller one asks. You nod. You don't say yes. You never do. The second man smiles, not kindly. Good steel, quick temper. Like its maker, maybe. They don't stay long. They don't leave coin. But when they go, the smell of cold wind lingers. The kind that smells of snow, even here, in the belly of summer. You drink water. It tastes like rust. That evening, the streets are different. More cloaks. More eyes that don't blink. The gold cloaks now walk in pairs. Not for safety. For authority. One of them, a boy barely past his beard, kicks over a beggar's bowl and mutters, "No wolves in the Lion City." The other laughs too hard. You don't watch, but you hear the splash of coins and then a boot, then nothing. The tavern is quieter tonight. The regulars are there. Fingerless gloves, onion breath, the widow who drinks like she's still married. But the talk is wrong, slower, afraid. They're moving Stark to the black cells, someone says. Means they're done asking questions, says another. Means they've already decided, whispers the barmaid, refilling your cup without looking up. The air is thick with something that's not smoke. Judgment, maybe, or hunger. You step outside before the sun is fully gone. King's Landing in twilight is worse than King's Landing in fire, because it holds the illusion of peace. Long shadows, soft gold light, the smell of roasted figs. But the silence beneath it all is too precise. Someone is arranging this moment. And above you, the red keep begins to glow. Not with torchlight, with intention. You walk home slower than usual. Not because of pain, because of weight. The city feels heavier now. The ground less willing to hold you. As if the bricks themselves resent your step. At your door, you find it again. Another note. No seal. Just a fold. Rough hand, the same. Tomorrow. New hands, same silence. Blade must speak without name. No payment. No signature. But now there's a symbol. A 7-pointed star, cracked through the center, drawn in ash. You burn it. As always. But the mark stays in your mind. And that night, you dream of fire. Not the forge. A crown burning on a boy's head. The next day begins the same. You wake before the sky does. No bells, no dreams. Just your back locking beneath you. The straw mat digging into your ribs. and the soft hiss of the forge cooling in its sleep beside you. You stretch your legs one at a time and listen to the wood groan beneath your weight. The rats have returned. You hear them scratching near the flour sack. That's a good sign. When they flee, it means something worse is coming. You wash with what's left in the bucket. The water is gray with ash. There's always ash in this part of the city. It seeps into everything. The walls, the bread, your lungs. When you spit into the basin, it comes out black. You light the coals early, using resin and fat scrapings from last week's roast. The flame takes quickly, but stays hungry. You feed it with broken cratewood and the legs of a chair someone left in the alley. The forge breathes again. Before the customers, you head down the alley. The path behind the shop leads to a crooked stairway between two tenements, one with shuttered windows and the other with none at all. At the bottom is a courtyard paved with uneven stone. A woman there boils onions in a cracked pot over a barrel fire. You give her your broken horseshoe. She nods and throws it in. That's how she flavors her stew. Iron and salt. Further on is the tannery. You hate the smell. It ruins your tongue for the whole day. But the man there owes you a strip of treated leather. You find it nailed to your usual post. No words, no coin. Just trade. On the way back, you pass a boy selling roasted chestnuts, two drunk septons trying to outpray each other, and a one-eyed cat that once stole a fish from your forge bucket and hasn't been seen since. The city feels restless today. Not loud, not violent, just waiting. Like a lung full of air, not yet released. You work until your arms go dull. First order, horseshoes. Second, a latch for a cellar door. Third, a short sword, unfinished. The blade's balance is wrong, and the spine hums too high when struck. You set it aside. Not today. Near noon, you hear a horn. Not close. Somewhere up the hill, near the Street of Silk. 3 short blasts, not military, not city watch. Probably procession. You don't look. You've learned that some sounds are safer if you don't give them your eyes. By afternoon, the streets grow denser. You smell vinegar from the picklers, boiled hops from the alehouse, and the reek of fish guts being flung into gutters. Someone is singing off-key near the fountain. The song is old, something about the Targaryen princess who flew into the sun. Or maybe it was the sea. The lyrics change depending on who sings and how drunk they are. A man stops by your forge, doesn't speak, drops a coin, looks at the unfinished short sword, stares too long, then leaves. You don't ask questions. He wasn't there for you. Just needed to see something that wasn't moving. The shadows stretch longer than they should in the evening. You close up the shop slow, pulling the iron bar across the door and setting the ash bucket in its place. You don't have a lock. Never needed one. If someone breaks in, they'll leave with burned hands and nothing worth selling. Dinner is bread soaked in onion water and half an egg. You chew slow. Not from manners, from habit. When you were a child, the faster you ate, the less you had tomorrow. You stare out the window after dark. You can just barely make out the outline of the great sept dome beyond the roofs. It looks calm, like a liar. Someone screams in the alley. Not close. Not far. Then silence. You don't move. You've learned not to. You rest your head against the wooden beam beside your bed. The wood smells of soot and old oil. Familiar. Safe. And before you sleep, you think of that note again. The cracked star. No words tonight, but the forge is warmer than usual. Something's coming. The days blur. The fire of the forge becomes your only clock. You sleep when the coals die, wake when the air stiffens with damp. You eat what's hot, drink what isn't spoiled, and keep your eyes low when the cloaks get too bright. You tell yourself nothing has changed, that the city always murmurs. But even silence sounds different now. It listens more than it speaks. On the fourth day since the second note, the streets press in tighter. The stone archways along the street of flower are draped with black cloth, not for mourning, but to cover up the sigils someone painted in chalk the night before. A lion strangling a direwolf, a crown cracked in two. You don't ask who drew them. They're gone by morning. But the scent of wet lime and paint thinner still lingers in the alleys. You take a different route to the leather post today. Past the washer's steps, past the moss-slick cistern where the blind man begs. You walk slower, not because of fear, but because you want to hear what the city says when it doesn't know it's being heard. Near the Blackwater Stair, two boys are playing at war. One wears a flour sack like a Stark cloak. The other holds a stick with a lion carved on it. They argue about who wins, then both fall silent when a guard rounds the corner. You keep walking. They don't start playing again. Back in the forge, the sword from yesterday still lies across the anvil. You pick it up, cold, heavy. You test the edge with your thumb. Too clean. You dull it slightly, just to feel better. Something perfect doesn't belong in this city. A knock at the side door, not the front. Not the usual time. You open to a man with dry hands and soft boots. He doesn't give a name. You don't ask. He places a small cloth bundle on the table. Inside is a broken ring, the kind worn by lesser nobles. One side snapped clean. Around it, wrapped tightly, is a cord of black horsehair. Mend it, he says. It's not iron, you reply. Do it anyway, he says, and leaves. You watch him walk away with the quiet of someone who never learned to make noise. Later, you visit the square near the hook gate where the spice merchants unload their goods. You go not for trade, but for the scent. Cloves and saffron, peppercorn and bay leaf. For a moment, the city smells like something alive, like it remembers joy. But then a cart overturns, and the shouting begins, and the air turns again to sweat and horse piss and resentment. That night, you sit by the dying forge and run your fingers over the old burns on your forearms. The scars don't ache, not anymore, but they remember. The skin remembers every time it failed to dodge, every moment it trusted the wrong heat. You glance again at the place where the second note burned. You wonder if you'll get a third. You wonder what it would say. And you lie back against the stones. The roof groans. The rats are quiet. The fire dies slow. And sleep does not come quickly. The next morning, your hands won't stop shaking. Not from fear. From overuse. You try to hold the hammer steady, but the weight slips wrong in your grip. You don't drop it. You never do, but your swing lands off angle, and the hiss from the iron is sharper than it should be. You stop. You breathe. You wait. That's the trick when the body fails. Make time do the lifting instead. Outside, the gutters are fuller than usual. Rain passed in the night, or someone let the bathhouses overflow again. The cobbles are slick and stained with runoff from the dye pits. Red, mostly, sometimes blue. Once, 2 winters ago, it was black, and no one asked why. You take the back route to the tannery. Through Tanner's Bend, across the Bitter Bridge, past the old fire-charred ruin they say once belonged to a nobleman who pissed off the Mad King. You don't believe the story, but you like the smell of the bricks there. Ash and old pride. A woman passes with a cart full of candles, muttering to herself. Not prayers, names. She repeats them in a loop, over and over. You only recognize one. Janos. You think it might have been a guardsman's name, or maybe a thief. Names travel strange in this city. Sometimes they belong to ghosts before they ever belong to people. Back in the forge, the air is sour with coal and steam. You re-wrap your wrists. The leather is fraying. You make a note to cut new strips before next week. You melt down 3 old nails and shape a hinge. You pour hot pitch into a cracked mold to seal a bolt. You move slow, not careful, deliberate. If you die, let it be from age, not from haste. Near midday, a peddler sets up outside your stall. Not a usual one. He sells rag dolls, little things with mismatched buttons and yellow thread for hair. He sings under his breath while stitching them. Not a good voice, but soft. His song is about a wolf who lost her tail in the snow and wandered too far south where fire lived. You hear it 3 times before he stops singing and just stares into the sky. You don't ask what he's looking for. A raven passes overhead, low, heavy. You watch it circle, then land on the roof of the Mester's house across the lane. It waits, then another joins it, and another. You look away. That evening, the wind changes. It comes from the east, over the Blackwater, saltier than usual. The smell of fish is drowned out by something metallic. Blood, maybe. Or something pretending to be blood. The tavern is quieter again. Fewer drunks. More sober faces. Men talk without moving their mouths much. One of them, a sellsword with a scar like a question mark, leans in and says, "They're bringing out the sword soon." He doesn't say whose. He doesn't need to. The barmaid clears her throat too loudly. No one looks up. Even the dice players roll quieter tonight. You leave early. The streets are too still. Even the whores by the Tower of the Hand have stopped calling to passers-by. You pass a gate where a boy carves something into the stone with a bit of broken glass. You glance down. A single word. Schrader. You don't ask who it's for. You walk home the long way, past the Sept, down Muddy Way, through Rook's Hollow. Every window you pass seems closed tighter, every curtain drawn. At your door, no note tonight. Just the weight of everything not written, and a city that seems to be holding its breath. You wake before the bells again. But today, the silence isn't thick. It's thin, brittle, like something stretched too far and waiting to snap. The kind of quiet that doesn't hold peace, only pause. You don't know what's coming, but the city does. You feel it under your feet as you stand. The stone seems colder than usual, less certain. Your breath fogs as you dress, though it's not cold. Sweat gathers before the apron is even-tied. The air carries weight, not heat, not humidity, just weight, like someone piled the sky a little lower today. At the forge, the coals are still warm from yesterday. That's wrong. You never leave them smoldering. You douse the pit every night. But now, embers flicker like they made their own decision. You stare for too long. Then you rake the ashes and start again. The morning is slow. No footsteps. No clang of empty barrels or vendors swearing at mules. Even the rats are quiet. You hammer 3 nails just to hear something hit something. Later, a boy runs past the open stall, gasping, barefooted, blood on his lip. He doesn't look at you. You don't call after him. Then you hear voices, not many, but layered. From every direction, not quite loud, but growing. Different pitches, some quick, some low. No words, just pressure. You step outside and tilt your head. It's not song. It's not a riot. It's something stranger. Anticipation. You walk the longer way again, down Charcoal Lane, past the ruined granary. A child is drawing on the stones with chalk. A sword, a tower, a man without a face. You keep walking. At the corner by Maiden's Gate, 2 guards argue in hushed tones. It's today, one says. Then why's there no procession? The other asks. Because it ain't meant to look like justice. You pass without being noticed. In the leather yard, the strips you ordered aren't on the post. Instead, the hook is empty. A sign. The tanners fled early. You cut through Rope Maker's Hollow on the way back. Not because it's faster, because it's narrow. Shadowed. People don't shout there. A woman carries a basket of dried flowers that smell of vinegar and dust. Her eyes never lift. Back in the forge, the light has shifted. It slants through the shutters at a harsh angle, like a blade drawn too fast. You sit beside the coals, but don't stoke them. You don't need the heat. You're already sweating. You work your fingers along the edge of the unfinished blade from 2 days ago. It's still unbalanced, still too light in the hilt. You should fix it, but you don't move. Instead, you listen. Far off, a single bell rings. Not the morning bell, not the wedding bell, not the dead bell. Something between them all. You stand. Not because you want to, because you must. The city is calling. And though you have no part in it, you must witness it. That is what people like you are for. Witnesses. You close the shutters. You bar the door. But you do not return to the forge. You sit beside it, and you wait, not for the noise, but for the silence that will come after. You don't remember falling asleep. You just remember waking up wrong. Not startled, just too still, as if something had stopped moving inside you. The coals are almost out. The air's gone sour again. You push yourself up slowly, and for the first time in weeks, your knees complain louder than your hands. Outside, the sky is pale. Not gray, not blue. Just pale, the color of boiled bone. The kind of sky that doesn't want to be looked at. You don't hear the usual things. No vendors. No clatter of hooves. No arguments over stale apples or the price of salt. The forge hums faintly behind you, but even that feels like an echo. You open the shutters. The street isn't empty, but it isn't full either. People move like smoke, drifting, silent, uncertain of direction. Most keep to the walls. You see more cloaks than usual, but fewer swords. Even the guards are thinner today, stretched between too many places and too few answers. You walk, not far, just to the bend where old Aletha sells tripe from a pot the size of a coffin. Today the pot is gone. In its place, a crate with wilted turnips and a single crow perched on the lid. It doesn't fly away as you pass. It just stares, like it knows something. Further along, you pass the wishing wall, where people tie scraps of cloth to stones. Prayers, pleas, desperation disguised as tradition. Someone's written a name in blood. Not paint, not ink. Blood, it's still wet. You pause. A man leans out of a window above and spits into the alley. It lands near your boot. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't close the shutter either. Around the corner, near the Boilsmith's arch, 3 washerwomen speak in low, urgent tones. They don't notice you at first, but when they do, they fall silent too quickly. One of them clutches a bundle tighter, wrapped in linen, small, shaped like something precious or broken. You don't ask. A beggar approaches. No hands. Burn scars over half his face. He doesn't beg. He just says, "They're sharpening it now." You don't respond. You just nod and walk on. Back at the forge, a strip of parchment waits under a stone. It isn't a note. It's a drawing. Crude, rushed, charcoal smudged, a head on a spike. The ink hasn't dried fully. It stains your fingertips. You crumple it and toss it into the forge. It doesn't burn the first time. You have to press it into the coals with the poker. When it finally catches, it curls into the shape of a crown before vanishing entirely. You don't sleep that night. You don't hammer. You sit beside the fire, which refuses to die no matter how long you leave it unfed. And somewhere far above, beyond the walls and the hills and the stone, the city holds its breath one last time. You wake again to a day that doesn't feel like one. There is light, but it doesn't warm. Movement, but not direction. The forge is cold, but your body sweats. You don't dress fully, just enough to step outside, feel the air, taste it. It's thick, not with rain, not with dust, with something else, something not yet named. The streets are not busy, but neither are they calm. People move in half circles, stopping, turning, changing their minds. A group forms near the well, then scatters when a cart passes. Voices rise and fall, not shouting, but louder than they need to be. Too many eyes searching for others to agree or disagree or blame. You walk toward the square near the old set steps where the sellers usually gather. Today, they sell nothing. Just stand beside empty stalls, watching the red keep in the distance like it's about to speak. The tower shadows stretch too far, even though the sun sits directly above. The air is wrong here. Tighter. Someone coughs behind you, not from sickness, but tension. You turn. No one is close. You return to your stall, but don't go inside. You sit on the threshold, apron untied, hands empty. It's the first time in months your hands don't know what to hold. A boy walks past, not running, just walking. His tunic is too big, and his face is marked with charcoal. On one cheek, a lion. On the other, a direwolf. You don't stop him. You don't ask who did that. He disappears down the slope toward the river. An old man approaches then, slow steps, beard like burned rope. He doesn't speak, just stands near your stall and watches the same patch of sky you've been avoiding. When you finally glance up, you notice it. Not clouds, not birds, ravens, dozens, circling, low, quiet. They gather before it begins, he says, voice like dry parchment. Before what, you ask? Whichever lie becomes truth today. You don't reply. He leaves without waiting. By midday, the noise begins to rise. Not all at once, not in one place, but everywhere. Footsteps, door latches, boots on stone, voices in hallways. The sound of things moving that had no reason to move before. You feel it through your boots. Not vibration, just pressure, as if the city's veins have opened slightly. And then the silence returns, that cold, surgical stillness. You close the forge door behind you. You bolt it. You sit by the anvil with the unfinished blade across your lap. And for the first time in your life, you do not know what you are waiting for. You only know that it's close. Very, very close. You hear it before you see it. Not a sound, not fully. A pull, a swell in the air, like wind that doesn't move anything. You step out from the forge, just far enough to see the rooftops lining King's Row. The sky above them is pale, but moving not with clouds, but with crows. Dozens, maybe more. Silent, gliding in circles above the square. You don't ask which square. There is only one today. Down the street, a group of boys runs barefoot, shouting something you can't make out. Their words bounce off stone, lost in the alley's twist. They are smiling, but it's the wrong kind of smile. Nervous, forced, like children laughing at a fire they didn't start. Near Sweet Milk Gate, an old vendor unpacks nothing. His stall is bare, his hands tremble. He chews fennel root and spits every few steps. Not once does he look up. You follow the slope toward the edge of Ballar's Square, but not close enough to be seen. You stay near the tailor's wall, half in shadow. Already a crowd gathers, not packed tight, but spread like a bruise. Soft voices, nervous adjustments. The occasional bark of a name. Guards trying to part the flow or redirect it. You hear someone say, "It's really happening." Another replies, "He confessed." They say he bent the knee. Doesn't matter. A third voice snaps. He raised banners. That's all the boy king cares about. You catch fragments as they drift past. False traitor, Lannister gold, Stark mercy, Dragon girl in the east. The hand is finished. You don't know it's true. You only know that none of it sounds like peace. The bells haven't rung yet. That's how you know it hasn't started. But you hear metal moving. Not swords, but the clatter of a raised platform, hastily reinforced. Chains, timber creaking, guards barking orders. Then silence again. No birds, no dogs, not even rats. You take a few steps closer, into the edge of the open lane. The square is still visible in glimpses, between shoulders, over heads. You don't want to see more, but you do. You always do. From somewhere deep in the city, a bell tolls once. Not for the dead, not for the hour, something in between. And that's when the wind shifts. It comes from the square, not the sea. And it smells like sweat, old iron, and something sharp, like the breath held too long by 1,000 mouths. You don't move. No one does. The city is waiting. And you, like all of them, are part of its silence. It starts with a name, not shouted, not sung, just spoken flat by a man whose voice isn't used to being heard by thousands. You don't see him. You don't need to. You hear enough. Lord Eddard Stark of House Stark. Hand of the King. The square doesn't erupt. It tightens. Like skin around a wound. The sound is sucked from it, not silence, but a vacuum. Everyone leans forward, even if they don't realize it. Even you. You move closer, against your own rules, against every instinct. You tell yourself you're just following the crowd. But the truth is, your legs are moving without orders. You want to see. You're afraid to see, but want wins. You press through shoulders and backs. The crowd doesn't fight you. They're too focused, too locked on the scaffold. A platform built overnight, now stained with sunlight and fear. You see red cloaks. You see gold. You see steel. And then you see him. Not like in the stories. Not like the northern lords are drawn in the broadsheets proud, towering, cold as winter. No, he's thinner than you thought. Older, one shoulder higher than the other. Beard more gray than black. His wrists are bound, and he walks like a man whose knees were forced to learn pain. But it's him. There's no mistaking it. Ned Stark. You've never met him, never spoke to him. But you've seen his sigil, heard his name in the mouths of butchers' sons and bakers' wives. You've hammered steel meant for men who served under his banner. You once made a knife for a boy who claimed he saw the Stark daughters riding down the market road on matching horses. Maybe true, maybe not. The wind catches his hair. He kneels. Gasps ripple through the crowd like wind over grain. You hear someone behind you whisper, "If he begs, it's over." Another voice, rougher, "If he doesn't, it's war." He speaks, but you can't hear the words. Too far. Too much noise now. Not shouting, just breath. Thousands holding it. Then comes the motion. A boy, no, a king, rises from a throne set too high for his shoulders. A golden crown slides on his hair like it doesn't belong there. His mouth moves. Orders fly. A woman moves to stop him. Red hair, rage in her face. Another man, short, watchful, wine-eyed, watches her, not the scaffold. You don't know what's being said. You only know the shift. Everything shifts. The guards tighten. The executioner steps forward. Black hood, broad shoulders. His sword is long, longer than any you've made. You know what it takes to swing something like that. What it means to be chosen to do so. The man kneels deeper. A girl screams. High, young, somewhere to your left. Then, one blink later, it's done. No drum. No fanfare. No clean cut. Just a sound. Wet. Final. A weight hitting wood. The square doesn't cheer. It doesn't scream. It just dot, dot. Moves. Backwards. Forwards. Inward. Outward. Some turn away. Some kneel. Some vomit. Some start to shout. Not words, just noise. The guards move to hold people back who don't want to be near anymore. You stand still. Not from fear. Not from shock. But from something colder. A craftsman's recognition. You've made blades like that. You know the weight that left that stump. You know the silence that follows. And in that silence, The city begins to unravel, not with fire, not with steel, but with breath, with gossip, with truth twisted and spat back out in taverns, in alleys, in temples and brothels and kitchens. And you walk home, slowly, not because of the crowd, but because something in your chest feels heavier now, like iron cooling too fast, like something cracked, but didn't break. The crowd doesn't scatter all at once. They peel away in layers, the quiet ones first, the ones who held their breath too long, then the loud ones shouting nothing, looking for someone to blame. The merchants curse under it all. The guards shove, herd, posture, but no one fights. Not yet. Everyone is still digesting the shape of what they saw. You don't leave the square. Not for a long time. You stand with your back to a cracked wall, watching the scaffold, even as the men in red begin to cover it. They're quick, efficient. The platform is no longer a place of justice or treason. It's just wood again, stained wood, washed in sunlight. Quiet now. Someone weeps, not far, not loud. A child, maybe. Or a girl. It's hard to tell. People give the sound space. No one offers comfort. Not today. The weeping is part of the air now. You finally walk, slowly. No destination. The forge is behind you, the sea ahead. The red keep looms up to your right, arrogant as always. But even it seems unsettled. The flags hang still. The stone glints cold. A raven perches on one of its teeth, wings tight as if the wind has offended it. Along the lower steps, you pass 3 boys drawing the scene with sticks in the dust. A square, a head, a blade. They argue over who gets to be the king. None of them want to be the man kneeling. You don't stop them, but you don't look twice. Near the sept of Baylor, the bells remain still. No toll for the dead. No public mourning. Just a long shared breath no one exhales. You pass a man with red on his sleeves. He's carrying a sack. It's heavy. 2 guards walk behind him, but no one makes room. He bumps shoulders. No apologies. The sack sways. You don't ask what's in it. You don't need to. Down by the water, the taverns overflow. Not with celebration, not even with rage. Just noise. Desperate, anxious, frightened noise. One voice cries, "That wasn't mercy. That was madness." Another answers, "He chose it. He confessed." A third slurs, "The king's a pup. The queen pulled the leash." They fight with words, but only with words. Tonight, no one dares draw steel. Too many watchful eyes. Too many red cloaks. The docks are quieter. The ships shift against their ropes like restless beasts. Somewhere, someone sings a northern song, too slow and too low to be joy. It breaks halfway through, and no one starts another. You lean against a post and watch the river. It flows like nothing happened. And maybe for the river, nothing did. But you know better. You turn home after the sun dies. The sky holds no stars, just a thick crust of cloud and something colder behind it. On your forge door, someone has etched a mark, not with chalk, but with the tip of a blade, a line crossed through a crown. You don't touch it. You don't wipe it away. You enter. You close the door. You sit beside the coals, and for the first time in years, you let them go out. Not from laziness, but respect for the man who knelt, and the boy who gave the order, and the city that stayed silent. You wake to quiet, not peace, quiet, the kind that doesn't comfort, the kind that presses down waiting. You stay on your back longer than usual, not because you're tired, but because your body doesn't trust the mooring yet. The air smells like wet stone and charcoal dust. Your hands ache differently, not from work, from something heavier, from memory. You sit up. The coals in the forge are cold, the kind of cold that seeps into metal, into breath. You don't light them yet. Not today. The blade from before still lies on the bench, untouched since the scaffold. It looks different now. Not wrong, just unnecessary. Outside, the street has changed, not visibly. The stones are the same. The gutter still stinks. The flies still orbit the same broken fruit. But people move slower. No one runs. No one shouts. They speak in corners, leaning close, like walls have grown ears overnight. You walk. Near the baker's alley, a group of women hang out linens without speaking. Their faces are set. Not mourning, just ... armored. A boy scrubs red off the tavern steps. Too bright to be wine. He doesn't look up when you pass. He just keeps scrubbing. The tavern is open, but the music is gone. No flutes, no drums. Just mugs and muttering. Someone reads a scrap of parchment out loud. A raven's message, copied by hand and sold for copper. Lord Stark confessed to treason and was granted the king's mercy. The voice falters. Someone throws a crust of bread at him. Not out of anger, out of refusal. The room smells of disbelief. You don't stay. On your way back, you pass the street of steel. Other forges are working. You hear hammers, but the rhythm is off, too slow, too uncertain. A craftsman knows. Men are striking metal, but their minds are elsewhere. You see one apprentice hit too hard, denting the edge. His master says nothing. You return to your forge. The mark carved on the door is still there. You leave it. You stoke the coals slowly. Not like before. Not from routine, from necessity. Not for coin, for motion, for breath. The blade on the bench no longer feels right. You heat it anyway. You work it anyway. You strike, shape, test its edge. Not because you believe in the order, but because metal demands it. As the day fades, a man in a hood passes your shop and drops a coin without a word. A gold stag. He doesn't look back. The coin rolls once, then settles near your boot. You don't pick it up right away. You just stare. The face on it is too young, and already forgotten. You open the forge at dawn, not because the work calls, but because the silence has grown too thick inside. The embers from yesterday are still warm, faintly glowing beneath the ash. You stir them gently, not like stoking a fire, like waking a friend from troubled sleep. The breath you give the bellows comes slowly, deliberate. The flame takes its time returning. So do you. Outside, the wind moves east, the way it always does after something dies. The smell of salt thickens. Ships creak down by the bay, but none set sail. Rumor says the gold cloaks are checking every hull now, searching for traitors. The word means less and less. It stretches to fit whatever the boy king points at. You walk toward the market, not for food, not for customers, just to see what the city still remembers. You pass the remains of a banner, black direwolf torn from its pole, trampled into piss and mud. No one picks it up. No one spits on it either. It just lies there, forgotten between footfalls. A man in a red sash walks past you muttering something about the bastard boy at the wall. You catch the words snow and the last true Stark before he disappears into the smoke of a fish cart. You wonder if the boy exists, or if he's just another name the city needs to believe in. You buy nothing. You speak to no one, but you listen. Near the hook, a foreign priest with red robes and a shaven head speaks of light and fire and rebirth. He draws a small crowd. His eyes burn too bright for mourning. You don't stay long. Men like him come and go. Fire speaks, but it also lies. Back at the forge, a boy waits. Not from the street, cleaner than most. He wears a sigil on his cloak you half recognize. A black stag on gold. Baratheon, or someone pretending. He doesn't say his name. Just places a small dagger on your table and says, No shine, no crest. Sharp, discreet. You nod. He places 3 silver stags beside it. Before he leaves, he glances once toward the red keep. They say the small one, the imp, he's the only one left with sense in that nest of vipers. You don't reply. The boy leaves. The dagger stays. You begin work without thinking. The metal sings, not loud, not joyful. It sings like an old tune played too slow, but still true. You strike. You shape. You file. And in the quiet between hammerfalls, you hear it again, the city breathing through clenched teeth. You know this rhythm. It's the sound of a place preparing for more pain, but pretending it isn't. The dagger cools on the rack. Balanced. Perfect. You don't know who it's for. You don't want to. These days, no blade is just a blade. Every edge carries whispers. You keep yours sharp, but your ears sharper. That night, the wind shifts again, this time with voices. At first, it sounds like a fire down the slope, but it's laughter. Not joy, not even mockery. Nervous, high-pitched, half-drunken laughter spilling from the Winegate Tavern. You drift toward it out of habit, not desire. You never drink to forget, only to observe. Inside, the room breathes heat and smoke. Eyes dart, voices hush when strangers enter. You sit in the corner, as always. The usual men are missing. New ones wear cloaks too clean and hands too smooth. Spies, or cowards pretending to be braver men. A woman tells a story about a bard who vanished the night after the hand's death. Another swears she saw Sander Cleggan dragging a corpse through the mud, his armor blackened with blood and smoke. No one knows who it was. The stories blur. A drunk man slams his mug on the table and shouts, "The Lion Boy's mad. Mad as the Targaryens. His crown's too tight." No one laughs. Someone else leans in and whispers, "Stannis is coming. From Dragonstone, with fire in his sails." No one answers. Not out loud. You leave before the night turns dangerous. On your way home, you take the longer route, past the sept, down the hill where the Silent Sisters once walked with carts of the dead. You see 2 of them now, hooded, wheeling a cart with something long wrapped in gray cloth. No one follows. No one watches. But the city feels the weight. At the crossroads near Visenya's Hill, a boy sells small scrolls for 1 copper each. You buy one. You open it later, beside your forge's weak flame. It reads only, "The Queen burns letters before dawn. What she fears, she destroys." No name, no sigil, just ink and implication. You burn it after reading, not from fear, but respect. The next morning, someone leaves a sack of coal at your doorstep, better quality than usual. No note, just the gift. You take it in. You stoke the forge. You resume the rhythm. Not because you trust the city, but because you know it better than it knows itself. And nothing in King's Landing stays quiet for long. Mornings come faster now. Not because the days are shorter, they aren't, but because sleep refuses to stay. Dreams snap like brittle twigs. You wake with the taste of ash and the sound of distant hooves in your ears. There are more patrols lately. Gold cloaks, mostly. Some with black ribbons tied to their hilts. Mourning? Protest? You don't ask. You never ask. In the square by the old fountain, someone's carved the direwolf sigil into the stone base. Crude, shallow, angry. It wasn't there yesterday. Someone has tried to chip it away already, but the lines remain, deep enough to defy soft hands. That's how it begins. Signs scratched in public places, words left on walls, eyes watching where they didn't before. You pass 2 men sweeping the steps of the tax house, muttering as they work. They say Tywin's coming down from Harrenhal. Good, maybe he'll teach the Boy King to wipe his own ass. Or burn half the city doing it. They don't look up. but their words carry like smoke, thin and everywhere. Later, as you sharpen a pair of hoof knives for the stable master's apprentice, a shadow falls across your doorway. You expect a customer. Instead, a girl, no older than 13, stares at the steel on your table. Her clothes are patched, her feet bare. Do you make weapons that don't sing? It's an odd question. You say nothing. She turns, and before vanishing into the alley, mutters. They're looking for quiet ones now. You watch the space she leaves behind longer than you should. At dusk, the forge glows with honest heat. The coal someone gifted still burns cleaner than what you could afford. It heats the room, but not your chest. That part remains cold. You clean the blades, you bind the hilts, you hang the tools in the same places as always. The pattern holds. The city doesn't. In the distance, the bells ring once. Short, sharp, not ceremonial. A signal. You look up, but the sound already vanishes into stone. A man passes outside, singing too softly to follow. The tune sticks in your ear anyway. Something northern. Something about wolves in the snow and mothers who wait forever. You don't know the words, but you know the ending. They never come back. You wake before light again. It's no longer unusual. Your sleep has begun to feel like a negotiation, not with dreams, but with memory. You sit up slow, knees crack, joints crumble. You don't stretch anymore. What stiff stays stiff. What aches, aches. There's a quiet outside that isn't peace. It's the kind of hush you get before bad weather, or worse, before news. You stare at the forge's ceiling, still shadowed, the planks above scorched with soot lines that never fade no matter how often you scrub. You stopped trying long ago. By the time you light the coals, the street has begun its murmuring. Not loud, not angry, curious, cautious, like the city is trying to figure out whether it's allowed to care. You hear the clatter of boots, gold cloaks again, but they don't shout this time. They walk with measured pace, sweeping glances, looking for signs. Signs of what? You don't know. You don't want to. You pass the baker's stall, still closed, still boarded. A fresh smear of red on the door, not blood. Wax, maybe, or paint. The symbol is strange. A flame over a crown. You've never seen it before. You keep walking. In the market square, the noise is back. Not busy, not vibrant, just mechanical. People trading goods with eyes that never look up. A woman sells cabbages while muttering prayers. A boy offers knives he clearly stole. The air smells of river silt and sweat and something faintly sweet that shouldn't be there. Perfume, maybe. Perfume and iron. You pause at the seamstress row, where soldiers used to pass with coin and crude jokes. Now it's full of silence and shutters. One door is half open, but no light inside. A cat slips out. You see blood on its back, not its own. By mid-morning, a new whisper moves through the alleys, not from lips, but from the tap of boots and the rhythm of carts. A new shipment from the Red Keep. They say arms, supplies, documents. No one knows for sure, but the guards are tighter. The merchants more still. One man is dragged from a cart for not bowing fast enough. You look away before his screams start. Back in your shop, you file down the spine of a cleaver. Not for a butcher, for a hedge knight who brought it in 2 days ago. He didn't speak much, just dropped the blade and said, "No shine, no reflection. If it sees me coming, I've already lost." He paid in coin from Highgarden, smooth, green-tinged silver. Rare this far east. You didn't ask why. You never do. That evening, a storm gathers, but never falls. The clouds hold it in. The air thickens. A raven lands on your chimney and doesn't caw. It just watches. You throw no stone. That would mean you care. That would mean you're afraid. You boil a small pot of barley and bitterroot, same as always. You sit on the stone step outside and chew slowly. Across the street, a girl draws pictures with charcoal on a crumbling wall. A lion, a wolf, and a dragon all in a row. She draws the wolf largest. Her hands are filthy, her focus perfect. Someone from down the lane shouts, "Stop that. You want your head on a spike?" She runs. The image stays. Night comes quietly. No bells, no screams. Just wind against the shutters and the hiss of sand under cartwheels. You dream of snow, not the cold kind, the boy kind. The one they say lives beyond the wall. The one they say wears black and speaks to wolves. You dream of him walking through fire, not burning, changing. You wake and sweat. But it's not the fire that scared you. It's that he looked at you and knew your name. You wake to footsteps, not outside, not above, below, inside the stone. You lie still, holding your breath, and the sound passes, slow, deliberate, as though the keep itself has begun to walk. When you rise, there's no one in the street, no voices, no carts, no wind, just the memory of steps and the pressure they left behind. The forge is colder than usual, not dead, but hesitant. You coax it like a beast that's seen too many masters. The flame returns eventually, but without warmth. You do not speak to it. Not today. You let the metal do the talking. Let the bellows breathe for you. By noon, the city starts to move again. Not fast, not loud, just motion. Enough to make you wonder if the silence from earlier had been imagined. You step outside with a half-finished pummel in hand and catch sight of a small crowd near the sept wall. No shouting, no stones, just men and women staring at something behind a draped cart. You don't go closer. The people gathered there are the kind who've stopped asking questions. They only gather when there's something they wish they hadn't seen. At your side, an old man speaks without turning his head. They found one of the queen's cousins, strangled, blue-faced like a Dornish fig. You don't respond. He doesn't wait. In the afternoon, a new commission arrives, not a weapon, but a grill of twisted rods for some noble's hearth. The boy who brings the order stammers, refuses to make eye contact, and fumbles with the coins. You take the gold anyway. It smells of lavender oil and vinegar. You don't ask whose home it's for. You hammer. You twist. You shape iron into form, and outside, the sky lowers like a hand pressing down on the city. Clouds thick as soup roll in from Blackwater Bay. The birds grow quiet. Even the rats hesitate before crossing the open stones. Toward evening, a knock, not urgent, not shy. A measured tap, 3 beats, then silence. You open the door to find a woman in cloak and hood. Her hands are clean. Her boots are not. "Is it true?" she asks. You raise an eyebrow. That they took his bones north. That the wolf still walks. You don't answer. Not because you doubt it, but because truth here has gone brittle. It breaks too easy under weight. She leaves you a pendant made of bone and copper. Says it belonged to her brother. Says if you melt it down and cast it into something strong, she pay twice over. She doesn't give her name. You don't ask. Nightfall comes fast and without stars. Smoke from chimneys hangs heavy in the alleys, mixing with the stink of wet stone and waste. In your sleep, you dream of the Red Keep, but not as it is, smaller, shabbier, cracked. The towers bent inward, like a giant hand closing into a fist. And somewhere in that dream, you see Tyrion Lannister standing alone in a dark chamber, talking to someone you cannot see. Power resides where men believe it does, he says, not to you, but somehow through you. You wake before dawn, chest tight. There are fresh boot prints in the soot outside your shop, too large for a child, too precise for a drunk. You erase them with your heel. The next day brings blood, not yours. A man in the square is lashed to a post. His clothes are stripped, back scored with lashes. No explanation is given. A septon reads a prayer. A man weeps until he doesn't. You keep walking. You smell the iron before you see it. Back in your forge, you find the grill finished, the rods aligned like ribs. You stare at it too long, unsure if the shape resembles something you meant to make or something that made itself. Later, you overhear guards arguing near the grain depot. "She sent word to Old Town," one says. And they answered. A raven came, not from the citadel, from the Black Rookery. The other spits, says nothing. You close your shutters that night. When you eat, you count your chews aloud. 17. Always 17. You don't remember when the number began to matter. You keep a dagger under the workbench now. Not for defense, just for symmetry. 2 days later, the bells ring again. Not for celebration, not for warning, just once and long. So long it begins to feel like a word you've forgotten how to understand. People stop, listen, and pretend they hadn't. That's the trick in King's Landing. Pretend fast enough, and maybe the danger moves past you. Maybe. The city wakes slowly, as if nursing a bruise it can't locate. You smell salt on the wind, but not from the sea. It's deeper, older, like something spilled in the foundations of the Red Keep is rising to the surface. You drink stale water. You tear a piece of crust from a loaf too dry to chew. Your jaw aches. You chew anyway. At the far end of the alley, a man dressed like a merchant but too still to be one waits near the butcher's stand. He doesn't speak, just watches. His boots are foreign, soft leather, dyed gray. When you meet his eyes, he nods once. You do not nod back. When you look again, he's gone. You spend the morning sharpening a blade that doesn't need it. Not for pay, not for war, just for the rhythm. The hiss of whetstone, the scrape of grit, the whisper of edge meeting purpose. Outside, the birds have returned, but they do not sing. They only perch, watching. Around midday, the street thickens. Not with people, with anticipation. A woman on the corner sells thin ribbons the color of old blood. For the Queen, she says, but no one wears them. They tie them to door handles, to posts, to knives. You pass by the tailor's shop. His window is cracked. Inside, he's sewing black cloth by hand. Not armor, not mourning. Something between. A guard stands by the door with a bandaged hand. He doesn't blink when you pass. The forge takes longer to heat today. You pump the bellows harder than usual. Sweat stings your eyes, but not because of the heat. You feel it in your teeth. A pressure in the air, like thunder that has chosen not to speak yet. You hear nothing, but your bones tighten. In the evening, a boy runs down the alley yelling. The hand's fate comes with the setting sun. You don't know where he learned it, or who told him to say it, but the words are too measured to be his. In the tavern, the silence has become ritual. No one speaks names anymore. Not out loud. Not of the king. Not of the queen. Not of the wolf. Not of the lion. Not even of the spider. A man drinks alone in the corner, his face unfamiliar. He wears the sigil of House Florent, but stitched backward. You stare too long. He notices. He smiles. He doesn't blink. He leaves before his mug is empty. You finish your drink and leave your coin on the table. Outside, the bells start again. 1, 2, then silence. A murmur spreads, not of words, of movement. Feet scrape the stones. Doors open. Hands grip ledges. You climb the narrow path toward the sept of Baylor, not to see, just to feel it. The crowd is already there, shoulder to shoulder, breath to breath. The stones are warm beneath you. The sky burns orange, like the horizon has caught fire from within. You don't see the sword, only the way people shift when it moves. Gasps. Then nothing, not even a cry. not even a name. Then the bells again, just once, short, sharp, like a door closing. Someone sobs nearby. Someone else says, he was the only one who knelt honest. You stay until the sun vanishes behind the walls. You don't watch the cleanup. You don't count the ravens. On your way down the hill, a child gives you a piece of cloth, torn from a banner, frayed at the edges. You saw it, she says. That means it matters. You take it. You don't speak. Back at the forge, the fire has died out. You don't relight it. You sit beside it, cloth in hand, and stare at the coals. The silence presses in like stone, like truth, like grief that knows it cannot speak itself aloud. And tomorrow, the city will pretend again, and you will let it. You don't open the shop the next morning. You sit on the step, elbows on your knees, the banner cloth still in your hand. It smells of smoke now, and not from the forge, from the pyres. Someone must have lit one last night, or many. You didn't hear the screams, only the bells. Always the bells. No customers come, no guards, no errands from the stables. Even Moria, the candle seller, keeps her cart hidden in the alley. The city hasn't stopped, it's only slowed, like a wound trying to scab. You walk the southern edge of Flea Bottom, not because you need to, because motion feels safer than stillness. A man with half a beard and no shoes tells you the king himself swung the blade. Another claims it was Sir Ilan. Someone else mutters it was the queen who gave the order with a nod. Everyone agrees, and no one agrees. Truth here is a river. You're not allowed to step in. The Sept of Baelor looms behind you as you pass a crumbling bakery, now boarded and painted with the sigil of House Lannister. Not carved, not etched, but splashed, like blood thrown from a basin. No one bothers to clean it. A guard leans against the wall with a loosened breastplate. His eyes are wet. He's muttering to himself. He knelt. He knelt. Gods help us, he knelt. You keep walking. Back at the forge, someone has left a wrapped bundle at the door. No note. Just black linen tied with simple twine. Inside, a broken sword, shattered at the hilt. Northern make. Valyrian steel, or once was. You recognize the curve of the pommel, like a dire wolf's fang. You've never touched such a weapon before. You don't touch it now. You rewrap it and set it under the bench. The rest of the day, you work on horseshoes and hinges. Nothing sharp, nothing meant to pierce or split, just tools. Honest tools. The kind that hold wagons together and don't draw blood unless misused. You let your hands find their rhythm. Your muscles carry the day for you. You think of nothing. Not because you're calm, but because thinking would shatter the calm like a dropped goblet. Evening brings smoke from the river, thick and oily. Someone says a boat was set on fire, full of the Stark man's followers. Others say it was a warning from the queen to the north. Still others say the Red Woman lit it. You've never seen her, but you've heard stories. They say her eyes don't blink when she speaks. That night, the tavern fills again, but with a different kind of noise. Not drunkenness, not revelry. The sound is tight, clipped. Men drink with eyes locked on doorways. Women speak without smiles. A bard strums a stringless lute for coin, not for song, but for silence. You sit in your usual corner. A soldier in Lannister red walks in, looks around, orders nothing, leaves. Everyone watches, but no one follows. You return to your forge. On your work table, a message. Scratched into the wood itself, shallow but deep enough to scar. He saw. You did too. You don't sleep that night. You lie on the straw, hands behind your head, staring at the ceiling. You think of wolves. You think of fire. You think of the look on the child's face when she gave you the cloth. You think of the sword you didn't finish, the names you never asked for, the truth you've never said aloud. By dawn, the streets smell of rain and dust. The kind of morning that makes the stones glisten like they remember the last blood spilt on them. You light the forge. You pick up your hammer. You whisper only once, "I'm still here." The flame responds without judgment, without joy. Just presence, just heat, just iron waiting to become something else. You finish 2 horseshoes before the sun clears the top of the tower. By the 3rd, you stop pretending you don't hear the boots outside. Not marching, not running, just steady, searching steps. 1 pair, then another, then silence. You wait, they pass. That's how it is now. Presence without consequence. The feeling of being watched not by a man, but by the idea of one. You remember a time when laughter spilled from the tavern in the morning. Now, even the birds mimic caution. They flutter without song. They land without sound. You deliver iron nails to the carpenter's apprentice. She doesn't make eye contact. Hands you a loaf of bread in return, hard and flat as the city's new heart. As you walk back, you see a message scrawled on the corner of a stone well. The North remembers. Someone tried to scratch it out. The stone bled white, but the words remain like bruises on bone. A man you once knew from the Blacksmith's Guild, Orlin, bent back in wide hands, is being questioned near the fishmongers. 2 gold cloaks speak softly, but the shape of their bodies is violence. You don't intervene. No one does. But Orlin meets your eyes as you pass. His don't blink. He doesn't ask for help, but his silence screams. You return to the forge and pretend your hammer is louder than memory. Near midday, you spot movement from the roof opposite your shop. A raven, black, broad, staring directly at you. You throw nothing. You say nothing, but it doesn't leave for hours. That night, a figure appears in your doorway. A girl, same height as before, same eyes. "They took my brother," she says. "He wore wolf thread, said it made him brave." You nod. "He didn't scream. They said he smiled when they lit the fire." She hands you a pouch. Ash falls from the seams. You take it. She leaves without waiting. You add the ash to the coals. They burn hotter than they should. When you sleep, you dream of a feast. A long table with no guests. Goblets spill wine that turns to blood before it hits the floor. You dream of Joffrey, young and pale, gnawing on a bone like a dog. You dream of Cersei, watching, not him, you. When you wake, your hand is clenched so tight your nails draw blood. You soak them in the basin. The water clouds. Next morning, you carve the day's work into a small slate board, something Orlin taught you long ago. You leave it by the door, in case you don't come back. As you heat a rod to bend into shape, someone knocks. No rhythm, just 2 dull thuds. When you open the door, there's no one, only a token on the ground. A silver wolf's head, northern, melted flat, the features gone soft and undefined. You take it inside. By dusk, the streets swell again. Not with people, with heat. Something stirs in the air, like breath held too long. A fight breaks out down the road. 2 boys, no older than 10. One yells, "Traitor." The other yells, "King." Both leave bleeding. You forge a hinge that doesn't fit. You melt it down. Try again. Later, as you douse the coals, the smell of the forge shifts. Not sulfur, not metal, something sharper. You turn and find the girl standing in the dark again. "They're taking names now," she says, not asking, just writing. "You're on a list." You nod. "Do I run?" She shrugs. "Does the forge?" You don't answer. She leaves you another pouch. Inside, bone dust and something heavier, a tooth, a coin. You don't check. You feed it to the flame. It flares, then returns to dull orange. Outside, the bells ring. Again, but this time, not from the sept. From the docks. You know what it means. Someone new has arrived, or someone very old has returned. The knock at your door doesn't come with words, just a parchment, folded 3 times, sealed with no wax, but pressed with an emblem you recognize before touching it. A stag, barely visible, but there, burned into the corner as though with a ring. You don't open it. Not yet. You place it on the anvil, beside the melted wolf token, and return to the fire. The forge does not ask questions. It only answers pressure, time, and flame. Still, your hands hesitate. The iron seems slower to respond. You know it isn't. It's you. The wind carries sounds today that shouldn't belong in this part of the city. The clatter of galloping hooves, the sharp bark of highborn orders, the long drone of trumpet calls. You've heard them before, but not from this angle. Someone important has returned, or someone dangerous, or both. In the tavern, the air hangs dense and too still. The barkeep whispers to his son not to speak when soldiers are inside, not to mention wolves or dragons, not to look them in the eye. The boy nods too quickly, spilling ale, earning a cuff behind the ear. You sip quietly, scanning the room. 3 cloaks bearing the lion sigil sit together. Too close, too clean. One taps a rhythm on the table that doesn't match the song the bard pretends to play. A man near the window mutters, "They say the queen's brother is back. Not the pretty one, the small one." Another answers without turning, "Small doesn't mean safe." You finish your drink, leave your coin, and step into the evening thick with smoke, not from the forge, but from the dockside warehouses. The flames were put out quickly, you hear, but not before they claimed the storehouse marked for Old Town. Some say it was sabotage. Others claim it was punishment. Either way, someone paid. Back at your shop, the letter waits. You open it with the point of your dullest knife. We remember the blade you made. Another is needed. The hands change, but the purpose does not. There is no name, only a date. And a time, midnight, 2 days from now. You sleep with the forge burning low, a habit you haven't risked in years. The light flickers across the ceiling beams, dancing like fire reflected in a stranger's eye. That night, you dream of Arya Stark. She stands in a hallway lined with faces, some weeping, some grinning. She holds a blade, but doesn't move. She just stares past you and says, "You're not on my list, but you might be on someone's." You wake cold, though the forge still glows. The next morning, there are no customers. Just a note slipped beneath your door with one word scratched into it. Run? You don't. Instead, you head toward the street of steel, past where the forges burn night and day, through the market that now sells more dried meat than bread. You spot a man in robes of blue and silver amester, but not from the citadel. His chain is broken. He doesn't speak, just buys parchment and ink, then walks away without change. You pass a beggar woman with no tongue who signs to you with fingers that shake. You understand only one thing. The Red Keep is watching. She smiles, toothless, and offers a bone charm. You don't take it. You nod. That's enough. Back home, the air shifts again. The raven returns. But this time, it lands on your forge. It does not move when the coals hiss beneath it. You whisper, "Valor Morgulis." It blinks once, then flies away. You begin the blade that night, the one the letter asked for. No markings, no curve, just a straight edge, balanced and fast. It feels wrong in your hands, not because of the weight, but because it feels like a sentence. 2 strangers pass your shop that night. One wears gold trim, the other a hood. You don't hear them speak, but you see their shadows stretch too long for the torchlight. When they're gone, the alley smells of myrrh and iron. You finish the blade the next day. Wrap it in cloth, bind it with twine, burn the shavings and scrap. The note said nothing about delivery, but you know where it must go. The black cells have their own entrance, one only the smiths know. A door beneath the city, older than the walls above it. You've never gone through it. Until now. Inside, the smell is wet stone and old blood. A man waits in the dark, cloaked in gray. He takes the blade, says nothing. You leave the way you came. Back on the surface, the sun is out, too bright, the sky too clear, as if the gods are pretending nothing happened. But the air says otherwise. The silence between the crows says otherwise. And when you sit beside the forge again, hands empty, eyes dry, you whisper, "One more." And the city exhales. The day after the blade is delivered, no one comes to the shop, not even for nails, not even for hinges. The city feels suspended, as if time has been boiled down to one long breath held too long. Even the red keep, visible through the morning haze, appears different now, not looming, but listening. You hammer a rivet just to hear something louder than your thoughts. It echoes sharper than it should. No birds today. No dogs. Just the low creak of wooden carts pulled across stone and the soft chatter of servants, pretending they're not afraid. You step outside and walk toward the Blackwater. Not to see the water. You've seen it enough. But because your feet crave the motion, you pass a boy playing with a doll dressed in Lannister red. He's burning it with a bit of glass and sunlight. He doesn't smile, just watches it melt. 2 steps later, you hear someone whisper the name Fairies like it's poison. Someone else replies, he knows already, and the conversation ends with no eye contact. In the fish market, the prices are higher, the fish smaller. A vendor whispers that Dragonstone is stirring again. Another that Stannis Baratheon has begun gathering ships, but no one agrees on where, or why, or if. You pass a wall where a sigil was scratched out violently. Beneath the flakes of stone, a faint wolf still stares, teeth bared. No one has dared repaint it, and yet no one dares restore it either. Later, in the tavern, you overhear a quiet conversation between 2 men in brown cloaks, the kind that say nothing, not even with color. One leans in. It was the youngest Stark girl who vanished, they say. Last seen near the Sept. Some think she's still in the city. The other replies, then she's already dead. Or worse, hidden by those who don't bleed. You don't stay to hear the rest. You've heard enough. On the way home, someone hands you a bundle wrapped in cloth. No words, just a nod. Inside, a handful of half-melted rings. Gold, silver. One bears the crest of House Tully. Another, unmistakably House Arryn. You've never seen these worn in King's Landing, which means they weren't lost. They were taken. You melt them that night, not for profit, just to erase their shape. The metal hardens into a single ingot heavy, unnamed. The raven returns once more. This time, it drops something. A single feather, dyed red at the tip. From a raven, but not from this one. You've heard whispers of such things. Qyburn's birds. Not real, not false, not trained, broken. You burn the feather without touching it. It screams in the flame. By morning, word spreads of another death. A scribe from the Tower of the Hand, found with his tongue removed, eyes open, fingers bent in the shape of the crown. No one speaks of it loudly, but everyone walks faster that day. You forge nails that afternoon, 50, exactly. You don't know why. You just do. Your hands move with a purpose your mind doesn't name. It feels like preparation. That night, a man visits your forge. He does not speak his name, but you know his face from a poster long since torn down. Sir Meryn Trant. He examines the tools, the weapons on the wall, asks nothing, buys nothing, leaves nothing, just eyes your burned scars and says, "A good smith knows when to shut up." You look like a good smith. You don't reply. You relight the fire after he leaves, not for warmth, but to ensure you're not followed. When you sleep, you dream again, this time of the sept of Baelor, but broken. The steps cracked, the bells silenced. In your dream, Brienne of Tarth stands where the statue of the stranger once did, covered in ash, holding a sword too large for one hand, but she does not waver. She says nothing, but behind her, the dead walk, not fast, not loud, just inevitable. You wake gasping. You open the shutters. Let in the dawn. It smells of ash again, but also something else. Snow. Just a trace, but enough. Enough to remind the city that the North does not forget, that winter is not an idea. It's a wait, a whisper, a blade that arrives slowly, then stays forever. The snow doesn't stay. It dusts the rooftops, lingers on the iron railing outside the forge, then melts before noon. But it was there. And that is enough for the whispers to grow teeth. By midday, the phrase, "winter is here," spreads through the lower streets, not as fear, but as prophecy made real. The forge feels colder now, not because the coals are weaker, but because the walls remember something your body doesn't. A deeper chill, buried in stone and silence. You stoke the fire higher than usual. The flames reach greedier. The iron you shape today is for hinges and nails, but every strike feels heavier, like you're forging answers to questions that haven't yet been asked. You step outside during the break between orders. The wind carries new smells, fewer spices, more smoke. A fruit cart lies overturned near the baker's corner. No one picks it up. The fruit rots slowly, like a warning. At the sept, the bells remain silent. Not for mourning, not for celebration, just withheld. Like they too are waiting. In the evening, you walk further than usual, past the old stables that haven't held horses since Robert Baratheon's last hunt, past the statues that now wear crows instead of garlands. You stop near the outer gates of the Red Keep, not too close, just enough to hear. The guards say nothing, but their armor looks different, darker, leaner, like it was made not to shine, but to absorb the light around it. Someone nearby mutters the phrase, "Black cells leak secrets now." No one answers. Back home, you find a gift wrapped in rough cloth. No note. Just a piece of obsidian, smooth as glass, heavy as memory. You've never touched dragon glass before. It's colder than you expect, even near the fire. You don't melt it. You don't use it. You hide it behind the coal barrel. The next day, 2 gold cloaks stand at your door. They don't knock. They don't look angry. But they smell of vinegar and oil, the kind used to clean new weapons. The hand requests 3 blades, unmarked, no ornamentation, delivered before moonrise 3 days hence. You ask no questions. You nod. They leave. The forge eats your time. You shape the steel thinner, faster. No engravings, no names. These are not blades for display. These are for people who no longer care to be seen. At the tavern, someone plays a harp too softly for music. The tune is not for others. It's for memory. A woman nearby hums along, tears in her eyes, not because of the song, but because she knows where she last heard it. At the red wedding, she says to no one, and falls silent. You finish your drink and walk out just as 2 ravens cross overhead, flying low and in perfect formation. One dips, the other rises. They vanish behind the bell tower of Baelor. Later that night, you work by candlelight. The hammer rings quieter than it should. The heat clings to your skin like guilt. The final blade rests across your lap, balanced, plain, sharp enough to end a thought mid-sentence. You do not sleep. At dawn, the Red Keep's bells ring 3 times, a pattern you haven't heard before. You step outside. So does the butcher. So does the baker's boy. So does old Moria with her candle cart. No one knows what it means, but everyone stands still to listen. And when the bells stop, no one moved for a long while. You return to the forge. The blades are wrapped in oiled cloth, bound in rope. The delivery is due at dusk. You clean your apron. You wipe your hands. You wash your face in cold water and catch your reflection in the basin. For the first time in weeks, you look tired, not from the work, from the watching. As you close the door behind you, a child across the street shouts. They say a Targaryen was seen in the city, a real one. Someone laughs. Someone spits. Someone says, "It's too late for dragons. The fire already came." You walk north, toward the handoff point. Blades in hand, the forge exhales without you. The city continues to pretend it remembers nothing. You deliver the blades without ceremony. No guards. No exchange of names. Just a tall man in boiled leather, half his face hidden beneath a hood dyed in shadow and dust. He does not thank you. He does not count them. He simply takes the bundle, nods once, slow, deliberate, and disappears through a door that wasn't there yesterday. You do not follow. You wouldn't be allowed to if you tried. When you return to the forge, someone has left a coin on the anvil. Old, tarnished, Valyrian. A dragon on one side, a skull on the other. You've never seen one before, only heard stories from drunk sellswords and failed merchants with cracked dreams of Essos. You pick it up. It's warmer than it should be. That night, you eat in silence. Bread, salted lamb, onion boiled in wheat broth. It tastes like it always has. But your tongue lingers on the salt longer than it used to. The wind outside carries a scent that doesn't belong to King's Landing. Something burnt, but not wood, not flesh, something older. You remember a trader once spoke of Asshai by the shadow, of incense that smelled like forgotten names and voices that never rose above a whisper. This wind smells like that story felt. You close the shutters. The next day, the sky is the color of old tin. You wake not from sound, but stillness, the absence of crows, of vendors, of life. You light the forge anyway. You hammer anyway. Because routine is the only answer you trust now. Around noon, the bells toll again. Not for the king, not for war. Just a single note, held longer than necessary, like a breath before a knife falls. People gather without instruction. You see them from your doorway. Faces turned uphill, mouths closed, eyes searching. A whisper travels faster than horses. He's dead. Lord Stark. They did it, in the square, in front of the sept. You do not rush to see. You do not need to. The weight in the air has changed. The forge flame bends toward the street, as if listening. Old Moria's candle cart is overturned. Wax melted into the gutter. The boy from the bakery sits in the dirt, staring at his hands. You close the door and lean against it. The wood feels like it might split from holding too much. Later, a group of boys run past, shouting. Traitors gone. King's justice. One of them wears a wooden crown. Another swings a stick like ice. Lord Stark's greatsword, though you're sure the real blade is still somewhere beneath the keep, cold and unused. That night, the tavern is full, but silent. Every mug held, every throat dry. Someone finally mutters, "I thought he'd live. He looked like someone who'd live." Another replies, "That's why they did it." You leave before the candles burn out. Back in your shop, you sit by the fire, not forging, not sharpening, just sitting. You remember how the guards changed last week, how the cloaks turned redder, how the armor got darker, how the orders came quicker and the silence after them grew longer. None of it was random. It was all the sound before the scream. Now, the scream has come and gone, and the city will pretend it never heard it. The next morning, your hands move with less urgency. You shape no blade. You fill no order. You sweep the floor, repair a cracked bench. Oil the hinges on the back door. It's a funeral in motion. Not for Lord Stark, for what came before him. In the distance, the red keep looms larger. Not because it's grown, but because everything else has shrunk. Children no longer play in the street. Vendors speak in gestures more than words. A raven perches near your chimney, its wings dipped in soot. It does not caw. It simply watches. You don't ask who sent it. You no longer ask such things. Because you know now, the questions are the nails, and you're the hammer. You don't light the forge the next day. You sit by it, as if it might speak. It doesn't. But the heat it gave off yesterday still clings to the stones, like the memory of someone's breath on your neck long after they've gone. You press your palm against the hearth. It's neither warm nor cold. It simply is. Outside, the streets are quieter than they should be. Not silent, but tensed, like a crowd waiting for the next blow. The scent of ash still rides the breeze, but now it mixes with something faintly sweet, melted candle wax, burnt rosemary, whatever they scatter at the sept when they want death to feel like ceremony. You walk, if only to prove you still can. At the corner near the mason's yard, 2 guards speak in tones meant to be overheard. The hand's daughter's vanished. One's dead, they say. No, the small one was seen near Flea Bottom. Then she's a corpse already. Their words slip between cobblestones and cracks in walls. You say nothing. They don't notice you. You pass a man preaching to no one, dressed in rags, standing atop a barrel, holding a rat by the tail. The lion roars, but it cannot eat winter. The wolf dies, but leaves teeth in the snow. The gods are watching, and they blink like men. Someone throws a turnip. He laughs, then screams, then cries. You keep walking. Near the old sept ruins, someone has painted a new image, a crown cracked down the center. Underneath, fire obeys no crown. It wasn't there yesterday. A merchant with a broken arm sells old sigils torn from cloaks. You spot the Baratheon stag, the Erin falcon, a faded Greyjoy crocken. But the wolf, that one's missing. You ask nothing. You move on. You buy bread. It costs more now. The baker shrugs when you ask why. Because now people want it soft. Like the lie they tell themselves. The bread is hard anyway. Back at the forge, someone scratched a message into your wall. Not deep, not angry, just 3 words. Still you live. You stare at it until the sun shifts. That evening, a knock at the door. Not a stranger. It's the girl again. Thinner now. Her eyes darker, but still familiar. They're taking lists again, she says. Not names, just faces. If they remember your face, they remember who saw what. You offer her food. She declines. It's safer not to eat. She leaves before the moon rises. You stand in the doorway long after. The city below hums like a mouth full of secrets. Torches flicker on the battlements. You see silhouettes move. Guards? Servants? Shadows? Somewhere across the rooftops, you hear a whisper rise. Passed from window to alley, from boy to girl, from rat to raven. He should have lived. They should have spared him. The realm will pay, but there is no realm. Only people with keys, and people with doors. You close yours. Sleep comes slowly that night, and when it does, you dream of a blacksmith's hammer, left cooling in his snowbank that never melts. In the distance, a wolf howls, not in rage, not in grief, just to say it still lives, just to remind the world it was always there. The forge wakes before you now. You find it already warm when you descend the stairs, not hot, but holding the memory of fire. You didn't light it, you're sure. Yet here it is, alive again, as if refusing to stay cold. You say nothing. Just feed it another log and move slowly into the rhythm of the day. You sharpen a cleaver, then a chisel, then another cleaver, though no one asked for it. The metal sings the same as it always has. But today the song carries something underneath, like a whisper buried in a hymn. Not words. Just wait. The streets outside have thinned. Not in people, in movement. Fewer carts, fewer vendors, fewer things to say. The sounds of King's Landing have changed. No more laughter from the wine cellars. No songs from the guild halls. No drunken arguments beneath your window. Even the dogs bark with restraint now, as if fearing who might be listening. At mid-morning, a knight you do not know enters the shop. His sigil is unfamiliar, a black tree on red, but his boots are soaked in river mud. He doesn't speak at first, just watches you work. Then, without looking up, he says, "You forge for the wrong side." You pause, just slightly. "So did we all." He heads and places a pouch on the table. Heavy. No name, no list, no order. He leaves. You don't count it. You don't open it. You slide it beneath the bench and hammer harder than before. That evening, from the rooftop, you watch the Red Keep. Its windows glow like eyes. You see torches moving too many. You hear horns, not alarms, but signals, cold and planned. Farther down, toward the docks, smoke curls where it shouldn't. Not a fire. A burning. Someone is getting rid of records. Of cloth. Of things better unremembered. A whisper in the tavern. Grand Master Pycelle fell asleep during a meeting. Or was made to. Another whispers. The Queen's brother walks the halls again. The King's layer's back in gold. You sip your ale and listen. That's what you do. That's all you do now. Someone nearby speaks in Valyrian. You understand none of it, but the tone sounds like prophecy. You leave early. The forge is quiet when you return. But the coals don't die. Not anymore. That night, in dreams, you see the Iron Throne. Not in the Red Keep, but underwater. Deep, cold. Bent and broken, vines growing from its base. A boy sits on it. No face. Just shadows for eyes. When you wake, your hands are shaking. You hold them over the forge. Let the warmth calm them. The flames answer. They don't speak. They accept. As you prepare the day's iron, you realize the city no longer fears death. It fears silence. Because in silence, things remember. And in remembering, things return. You wipe your blade. You draw another. There is always more work. Even when the war is done. Especially then. The orders return. Slowly, quietly. A wheel spoke here. A lantern hooked there. Things meant for living, not for killing. And yet every request carries hesitation, as though the people of King's Landing are unsure if they are allowed to build again. You do not ask questions. You shape what is asked. One customer brings you an old brooch, a direwolf, cracked through the middle. He wants it melted. You ask if he wants something made in return. No, he says, just gone. You nod. It disappears in the flame before nightfall. The metal hisses like it's trying to speak, and falls still. Outside, the streets carry new graffiti. A wolf with crossed-out eyes. A lion with teeth filed down. Someone paints over them by dusk, but they reappear by morning. Not the same, but similar. Rage has no shortage of hands. A black-cloaked man stops by the shop one morning. Doesn't say much. You recognize him by posture alone. A brother of the Night's Watch. He asks for a horseshoe. For the last good horse, he says. You ask no more. His eyes carry the north with them. The kind of cold not even dragonfire can thaw. He leaves before the shoe cools. Later that week, 2 septas pass by, whispering prayers under their breath. They clutch scrolls like weapons. One of them stares at you too long, not in suspicion, but recognition. He made the blades, she murmurs, barely audible. You turn back inside. The forge keeps no records, but the city does. In memory, in rumor, in looks that last too long. One evening, a raven lands on your anvil. It carries no message. It simply sits, eyes like ink pressed into snow. You do not shoo it. It watches you hammer until you stop. Then it leaves. The next day, a page boy in Lannister colors brings you a message. A noble wants repairs. No details. The Red Keep. Come before dark. You don't go. That night, someone scratches at your door. No voice. Just claws or nails or something tired. You don't open it. The forge glows steady behind you. It hums like a lullaby for the damned. In your dreams, you see a hall of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of the city, one where the Targaryens still rule, one where Stannis burned it all, one where snow covers every rooftop and the bells never ring. You wake with soot on your fingers. No fire was lit. It's simply remembered. The work continues. Nails, hinges, hooks. The forge breathes. The metal sings. And though the banners change, and the names die, and the stories twist into shapes you no longer recognize, your hammer remains, because someone must remember what silence sounds like, because someone must live in a city that refuses to. You wake to voices outside your window, not yelling, not commands, just talking, soft, like the kind that carries truth better than shouts. Two men in cloaks sit on crates, sharing a crust of bread and a flask. Their words drift in on the morning wind. They say Sir Ilyn's gone silent. Too much blood dulls even the best blades. Not his blade, I fear. It's the ones being sharpened now. For who? Whomever's left. You don't lean closer. You've learned not to interrupt truth when it thinks it's alone. Instead, you start your day. The forge answers with a quiet breath. The embers pulse, not eager, but obedient. You strike the iron once, and it feels lighter. Not because it is, because your arms are heavier. You finish repairs on a shattered helm, the kind worn by low-tier guards during riots. This one has dents near the jawline. Someone was trying to shout when the blow came. You do not ask whose face it was. Near midday, a merchant from Old Town appears. He wears green sleeves and has fingers stained with ink. They burned the books, he says. Not the good ones, just the ones that mattered. What did they say? They said too much. He buys nails. Long ones. For boxes, he says. But his eyes suggest coffins. You give him extra nails. He doesn't thank you. Just nods. That's enough. In the square near the broken fountain, a puppet show draws a small crowd. The lion dances, fangs painted red. The wolf bows. The stag collapses. The dragon doesn't appear at all. Children laugh. Their parents don't. You walk the long way home. Past the alley where the city watch used to gamble. Past the ruined steps of the old sept, where candle wax still clings to the stone. Past the boarded shop that once sold stories, songs written by blind men, and maps drawn by mad ones. All closed now. You return to the forge. A paper has been slipped beneath the door. No wax seal. No signature. Just a hand-drawn circle with a sword through it. And beneath, make ready soon. You burn it, not out of fear, out of routine. That night, the forge refuses to cool. You open the windows. Still, the heat clings. You sleep without blankets. You dream without pictures. Only sound, footsteps on stone, chains dragging, a child crying, but never stopping. You wake with your shirt soaked in sweat. The coals still glow. You hadn't fed them since dusk. You stare at the fire for a long time, then whisper, "Not yet." And the flames settle, not out of respect, out of understanding, because the forge knows what you do. The next name carved into steel won't be yours, but it will be someone's. You wake to the weight of humidity pressing down on the forge like a second roof. The heat is thick before sunrise, clinging to your chest, dampening the cloth before you've touched coal. Outside, the sky hovers in that colorless space between night and ash, clouds, hanging low like they've been warned. You don't remember dreams, only a sound, hoofbeats in wet sand, repeating. You rinse your face with the last of the water in the basin. The rat doesn't show itself today. You wonder if it finally starved or found a better home. You dress without thinking, every motion familiar, mechanical, ancient. Leather apron, band around the wrist. Fingers check the hammer's balance as naturally as lungs check for breath. The forge is slow to respond this morning. You coax it with extra patience, each strike of flint a conversation. When it finally catches, it does so like a tired man rising from bed, reluctant but willing. You feed it. You wait. The first order arrives in the form of a boy with an eye patch and no words. He hands you a pouch of silver, half counted, half faith. The slip of parchment says only, "Gate hinge, strong enough to hold against wind." No signature, no house seal. Just a small smear of what might be blood. You begin the work. As the iron bends, you hum a rhythm you once heard on the road to Duskendale. Something sung by a sellsword with broken teeth. By mid-morning, the square outside has drawn a crowd. Not for market, not for festival, for watching. Watching the Red Keep, watching the doors. No one says it, but they're waiting for something. Or someone. You keep your distance. You don't ask. But when the guards ride past, even you glance up. Their armor is different. New etchings, golden trim too fine for mere city watch. They move in silence, hooves deliberate, cloaks too stiff to belong to ordinary men. One of them makes eye contact with you. Just once. Enough to remember your face. Noted. Logged. You return to your forge. The hammer keeps the beat. Metal answers. You lose time in it, the way monks lose time in prayer. Later, in the market, you hear whispers layered over whispers. Tommen's too young. The queen smiles too much. A white raven left the citadel last week. Winter? Not yet, but it's walking. At the baker's stall, the bread is short again. You ask nothing. Pay double. He hands you 2 loaves and a muttered phrase. Dragons don't starve. You don't know what he means. Maybe he doesn't either. That night, you find a feather on your work table. Black, curved, crow, likely. Or a message. You crush it in your palm. The next day begins like the last, but the forge feels heavier, like it knows. You hammer slower. Watch the door more often. There's a tension in the air that doesn't rise. It coils. A city waiting to exhale. You glance at the hill. The sept gleams. Too clean. Someone scrubbed the stone. Covered the stains. As if pretending nothing had ever happened there. But you remember. Everyone does. Even if they lie. Especially when they lie. You spend the evening sharpening old tools. Blades no longer needed. You polish the handle of a sword you once made for a knight who vanished before he could collect it. You consider melting it down. But don't. It's not finished with its story. Neither are you. You sleep light. Not from fear, but from anticipation. The kind that doesn't rush, but waits just behind your ribs. The kind that doesn't make noise, but hums low like steel cooling underwater. You wait before the sun touches the rooftops and step into the street without breakfast. The cobblestones are damp with dew. The kind that doesn't feel clean, only wet, a reminder that even the dirt in this city has a memory. You walk without aim at first, just to move, just to see who else is awake. At the fishmonger's corner, a child plays with a doll that has no face. At the well, a man draws water with the caution of someone expecting poison. You pass the old bell tower where the walls are cracked from the riot 3 years ago, and someone has written, "All men must die in charcoal," just beneath a window. You notice it's been written over another message, scraped mostly away. Only one word remains, mercy. You return to the forge, not because you re-ready, but because it is what you do. The fire greets you like a dog that's been chained too long, eager, hot, louder than necessary. You feed it anyway. The first customer arrives mid-morning. A woman in a dark green cloak, stitched with ivy. She carries a blade in cloth. When she sets it down, you recognize it. Valyrian steel. A family heirloom. Too old for her. Too noble for this district. She says nothing for a long time. Then simply polish it. No marks. No stories. You nod. She pays in coin that smells of salt and blood. After she leaves, you hold the blade in your hand longer than you should. It hums. Not with magic, but with memory. You wrap it again before it can say more. That evening, the wind changes. Not the temperature. The direction. It carries a sound from the harbor. Drums. Not fast. Not for war. A slow pattern. Arrival or departure. You don't ask which. At the tavern, talk swirls faster than the wine. He's not the real king. The girl with dragons is in the east. No, she's a ghost. A witch. Her blood's too hot for thrones. Winter's late because it's waiting for her. You sit in your corner and drink slowly, listening the way you always do. Not to the words, but to the tone. The desperation. The excitement. The fear disguised as prophecy. You leave before they start singing. Outside, the streets feel swollen. Like they've taken in too much and don't know how to let it out. You return to the forge. There's a parchment pinned to the door with a nail too fine for a carpenter. It says only one thing. We remember who watches. You burn it without reading it twice. That night, the forge stays warm on its own. You lie on your mat and stare at the ceiling. The rafters creak like old men whispering secrets. You close your eyes and see the red keep again, but not from the city, from beneath it. The foundations, the tunnels, the stones no one speaks of. A voice whispers in the dark, not loud, not angry, but certain. He screamed. The boy screamed. You wake before the scream finishes. Your palms are black with soot you didn't touch. And the forge, again, is waiting. You wake to a silence that doesn't feel empty, but full, like the breath before a scream. The forge hasn't cooled, though you left it untouched. The coals glow faintly, not with heat, but with memory. Outside, the street is washed in a yellow light that feels wrong. Too thick, like candle wax melting over stone. You open the door and feel it, the tension not in the air, but in the people. They move faster, speak less, avoid eye contact. You hear no shouting, but the absence of it is louder than any cry. Near the well, a man sits on a crate with his hands stained red. Not blood, dye. He works leather. But he scrubs his fingers like guilt is a stain that soaks deeper than skin. A woman hurries past you carrying a bundle of dried herbs. She's whispering prayers, not to the seven, but to the old gods, the ones not welcome this far south. She does not look at you. The forge feels smaller today, the walls closer. You strike metal just to hear something honest, but even the ring of your hammer sounds uncertain, like it's asking permission to be loud. You shape a set of door hinges, then a new latch, then a fireplace poker. All for no one, all to fill the hours. At midday, a pale rider passes, cloaked in house Aaron blue, dusty and worn. His horse limps. He does not stop, does not look up. But he leaves a trail of silence behind him, and the air forgets how to breathe until he's gone. Inside the tavern, the talk has changed. No more wine-fueled prophecy. Just short statements passed in low tones. They beheaded a baker, not for treason, for feeding the wrong ones. Gold cloaks took his son. Didn't even ask questions. No one drinks deeply. No one laughs. You sip slowly, listening, cataloging every name in silence. Then you hear it, a name you know. one you've never heard in this room. The barmaid says it under her breath, half choked by fear. Arya. Someone else asks, who? But the name sticks. It floats in the stale air like dust caught in sunlight. You leave without finishing your drink. Outside, the wind has turned. It carries the scent of the sea, but not the usual salt. Thicker, fouler, like something dragged up from deep water and left to rot. The smell of secrets. You pass the sept, where new banners now hang. Too clean, too bright, too quickly placed. Someone hums a hymn out of tune. The door is closed. You don't knock. That night, you hear footsteps in the alley behind your shop. Not rushed, measured. You blow out the candles. The fire dims. The steps pause. By your window, you wait. They move on. In the darkness, your hand rests on the old sword you swore never to sell. You didn't draw it, but the weight is comfort. The forge flickers. You whisper more to yourself than to the fire. Don't forget what the city hides. The coals pulse. They haven't, and neither have you. You dream of bells, not ringing, but cracking like bones under boot. In the dream, you're in the throne room, not as a king, not even as a subject, but as the floor itself, cold, invisible, trampled. You wait before the last step falls. Your back aches. Your jaw is sore from clenching. You slept with your fists curled. You wash your hands before touching the forge, not because they are dirty, but because they remember something they shouldn't. The city outside is quieter, but not calmer. The air feels stretched, the kind of stillness that makes birds stop singing. At the market, most stalls are closed, covered in canvas that flaps against empty frames. Those that remain sell quickly, cautiously. People buy bread like it might be their last meal. They buy oil like they plan to stay inside for days. You hear an old man shout about wildfire barrels found in the sewers. He says it's the Mad King again. No one stops him. Not because they believe, because they're afraid it might be close enough. A man wearing a sigil you don't recognize asks if you can reforge something. When he pulls it from the cloth, it's not a sword. It's a collar, too thick for a dog. You hand it back without a word. He doesn't argue. He just nods and leaves. The heat inside the forge feels heavier than usual, like it wants to speak, but doesn't have a mouth. You work slowly, deliberately. You sharpen a dagger, then dull it, then sharpen it again. You tell yourself it's to check the grain of the steel. But the truth is, your hands don't want to stop. The door creaks. You turn too quickly. But it's only a child, barefoot, wide-eyed, holding a coin you've never seen before. For a hook, she says. For my mother's door. You take the coin, shape the hook, wrap it in cloth so she doesn't cut her fingers. She thanks you with a bow, not a smile. You watch her walk away and wonder how many doors still open in this city. As evening falls, the city seems to hold its breath. The shadows stretch longer. The lanterns are lit earlier. A whisper passes along the alleys. The queen hasn't left her chamber in 3 days. Another says, someone saw the imp, in chains. Another, the bells were tested this morning, twice. You light the forge, not because there is work, but because there is not. The light keeps the silence at bay. You sit near the flame and oil your tools. You check the hinges on your door. You rewrap the old sword, then unwrap it again, just to feel the weight. A knock sounds, soft, like someone testing the wood. You don't answer. A voice follows, low and hoarse. They're already digging the next grave. Then footsteps fade. You stay by the fire, unmoving, until long past midnight. Somewhere far off, a raven calls once. Then silence. The coals flicker. The forge breathes. So do you. But both feel borrowed. The city no longer whispers. It murmurs now, deeper, slower, like a bruise settling into bone. You wake without knowing if it's morning. The light doesn't help. It's gray and stubborn, refusing to show its source. The forge feels unfamiliar. Nothing has moved, but something has changed. The embers are cold, not from neglect, but from exhaustion. You don't rush to relight them. Instead, you sit on the low bench near the doorway, elbow on your knee, and listen. No carts, no bells, just footsteps in the distance, not hurried, not slow, but resigned. A kind of walking you only hear after something irreversible. You step outside. The street is clean, too clean. Someone swept away yesterday's ashes. But the smell still lingers. Smoke, blood, iron, salt. Far up the hill, the sept doors remain shut. No one sings. Even the sparrows keep their heads down. You pass old Moria's corner and see her cart is gone. Only a wheel remains, broken and propped against the wall like a forgotten offering. A crow hops near it, pecking at something you don't try to identify. A group of children run through the alley, not laughing, not chasing, just running, because they don't know how else to move through this air. At the market square, the stalls are empty, not abandoned, stripped, no signs of panic, no mess, just gone. You stand there longer than you meant to, eyes scanning faces that aren't there. A soft wind brushes past, and you realize your hands are shaking, not from fear, from stillness. You return to the forge. The coals catch quickly this time, almost too quickly. You let the flame build, not because there is work, there isn't, but because something should burn today. You work the bellows longer than needed, letting the fire speak without interruption. When you stop, the room is silent, except for the soft pop of heat in stone. You stare into it for a long time, not searching, not thinking, just being. When night comes, you light no candles. The firelight is enough. Outside, the city does not scream. It exhales. Not in relief, in resignation. Tomorrow will come. It always does. But it will not be the same kind of day. And you, too, will be different. Even if no one sees it, even if nothing is said, the steel will remember. And so will you. You wake without feeling your body move. For a moment, you forget where you are. The mat beneath you feels harder, the air colder, the silence thicker. Then the smell finds you. Not the forge. Not the city. Rain. It hasn't started yet, but it's coming. You feel it in your teeth. The ache behind your eyes. The wind has shifted. You rise slowly, every joint a little slower, every breath a little longer. You don't rush. The city isn't rushing either. You open the door and step outside. The sky is pale with stormlight, not the color of steel, but the underside of iron before it's been worked. The street is empty, not abandoned, just waiting. A boy chases a rolling apple down the cobbles and doesn't to stop when it falls into the gutter. A woman stands in her doorway, eyes closed, face turned toward the sea. She doesn't move when you pass. You stop near the well, though you don't need water. The stone feels colder than usual. Someone has carved a new mark into it. Not a sigil, not a name. Just a line. One line, deep and deliberate. You touch it without meaning to. It catches your finger like memory. At the forge, the fire behaves like it knows the end of something. It burns low but steady. You don't add coal. You sit on the stool, blade in hand, not to sharpen, not to sell, just to hold. You listen to the wood creak. You watch a fly land on the anvil and stay longer than it should. A knock at the door surprises you. It's rare now. The man who enters wears no house colors. His boots are caked with dried road dust. He doesn't speak, just holds out a ring. A plain iron band. "Fix it?" he finally says. You nod. He stays to watch. Doesn't ask how long it will take. Doesn't explain where he got it. You repair the band and hand it back. He places it in his palm like it weighs more than gold. Then he leaves. The forge is quiet again. Outside, the first drop of rain strikes the edge of the window. Then another. The sound is soft, relentless, cleansing. You step outside without a cloak. Let it fall on your face, your arms, the back of your neck. It's cold, but honest. You look toward the Red Keep. The banners are soaked now. The gold threads don't shine. The walls look darker, smaller, less certain. The street beneath your feet begins to shine with wet stone. You stay like that for a while, letting the world be loud without voices, letting it speak in weather and water and wind. You don't need answers. You just need it to continue. And it does. By morning, the rain has stopped, but the city hasn't dried. The stones glisten with yesterday's weight. The gutters trickle slow and steady, like they too are unsure where to go now. You wake with the smell of wet ash in your nose, and your hands already curled, as if the dream had asked you to hold something heavy. The forge is still standing. The tools are where you left them. The sword you didn't sell lies under its cloth, untouched. You touch the handle once and leave it. Today doesn't need iron. It needs quiet. You open the shop door, not to start the day, but to greet it. The sky is colorless. The kind of blank that feels like a pause, not an end. You walk through the lower streets. The market is slow to rebuild. A few merchants set up canvas, but without urgency. No shouting, just soft voices, careful hands. Someone sweeps the square near the sept, humming a tune that doesn't match the season. You pass the baker's stall. A new boy sells now. His hands tremble when he handles coin. He nods at you, and you nod back. It's enough. On the corner by the old tower, someone has drawn a sigil in charcoal. Not a house banner, just a symbol. A line, then a circle, then another line. You don't know what it means. But it's not angry. That's enough too. The forge doesn't call to you. It waits. You light the fire anyway, slow and methodical, not for work, but to remind the walls they're not forgotten. The flame rises, calm and even. It doesn't fight you. It breathes with you. The metal on your bench is cold, but clean. You sort it without thinking. Shapes, sizes, possibilities. You begin shaping something simple, a hinge. Not for war, not for royalty, just for a door. The kind that opens and closes like a heartbeat. Outside, the street settles into its rhythm again. Not the same as before, never the same, but steady, familiar. A voice drifts through the open window, someone laughing. Not loud, but real. The sound fills the space between hammer strikes. By evening, the clouds have thinned. A pale strip of sky shows above the rooftops. You sit by the forge and let your hands rest. The heat against your skin is gentle now. The tools are lined up. The door is bolted. The sword is still beneath its cloth, silent. You breathe. Not like yesterday, not like before, but you breathe. And the city, for now, breathes with you.